Yeah, Kasirena's podcast. I think it's the second time. The last time we spoke was last year. No, this year. Ne?
Yeah, somewhere in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, beginning.
Yeah.
Of the year. It's Katsia Vaya, bro.
If
No, I'm saying no last year, but I can't remember last year. But otherwise, are you good?
No, sugar. Alhamdulillah. Doing well.
Alhamdulillah.
Can't
Yeah.
complain. What's your galaxies?
Galaxies, if it I'm a cloud seeding.
Yeah.
You know, ish.
Kastona ba re kgolla how to see the booty.
Hey,
When you're about to slaughter a goat, it
Yeah.
cries, but you still carry on slaughtering it. So,
Galaxies.
galaxies, bro. You have to carry on.
But otherwise, I wanted to talk to you about the education.
Right.
And it's one topic I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
You know, binangisungumuntu ofunde kakhulu. Hayi ukuthi uma passionate nge-education ufundela angifundanga kakhulu but ngumuntu very curious about information. Ngiyayithanda information.
Right.
Wherever it comes. I could be happy speaking to a carpenter. No.
Yeah.
We're like, plan awulibeka kanjani? We are cut out you measure. Yabona. For you, education, how is it been? I mean, from usakhula, I mean, were you a kid ebalekisgela or ile focused?
Yeah. So, I think I have I'm a layer. I have layers like a cabbage. Because I remember I grew up, I was born and raised in an Indian community. So that means for the first few years, about 6 years of my life, I went to a daycare, which was predominantly Indian coloreds than us Africans. So the main language and culture, you can say, it was like a mixed culture. So then we moved to Atteridgeville around 1999 at the end of the year. So getting from that semi-suburban lifestyle to go to Ekasi, it was a big shock, culture shock also on top of it.
Yeah.
At the time, I wasn't speaking any, you can say, vernacular language as per se, right? So we used to, like when with people from different cultures, you mix Zulus, Tswana, Spedi. Well, Pretoria at the time, majority would be Spedi speaking people, and some Zulu speaking, Ndebele speaking, just mix.
Yeah.
So when you go to Atteridgeville, there's a centralized language. Okay. So I go to school speaking English, my first 2 years, you can say. So they used to call me the Koa Mulungu because nigga was Ko. So now to connect with the educational system, Yasekas was hard because it's a public school. And I remember they used to teach us maths Kastswana, Dipalo, Dipalo. Right? And then you have Tswana Sading, then you have English also, you used to be taught Tswana.
Yeah.
So you were like confused, like, hey man, what's going on? So my first 2 years were very rough. And also being from a migrant family, that was another issue. Ekasi, xenophobic mindsets are there. So I remember there was one teacher in that school, she hated me because my father's Malawian. So she had this, I don't know if I can call it just hate, but that was like, she was repulsive. Like when she looked at me, she'll be repulsive, But anyway, so in that year, it was very difficult because you can't understand the language and you can't connect. And also the teacher, you can't connect now. And she was my class teacher. So I go to grade 2. Then I remember one time particularly, I was playing with one kid. This kid just went, hit his head on the door. Hey, they came to my grade 2 class and he was in grade 1, that boy. But I was like one class. So now, when the teacher found out what to know, I was playing with him. This accident happened. She was like excited. Yeah, today I got it. I'm shy. She beat me in front of everyone. So then grade 3 was now when things were starting to change because I could speak now Setswana, right?
Yeah.
But there's still that issue of I'm different because of my family background, etc. But then I remember one time, I always tell this to my wife, this story. The one kid, basically, like Arat, about Jackie China in primary school. So this one kid, he was about to kick me. I moved out of the way, he fell down. He fell on a rock, actually, so he broke his arm. So Tina, we are in the spur of the moment, the excitement. I went there, I kicked him, running. So imagine when he reports to the office, I say, no, I dropped them, I'm limas. So now it became like, oh, whenever you're always in trouble. I used to be in trouble a lot. And funny enough, I could say 80% of the time I was in trouble was not because I was doing it. Because of friends or something else. But anyway, so that's when things changed for me, because I remember this kid was in the hospital, then it happened what it was his birthday. So the teacher that time, she was okay, but she was still like trying to understand, what am I about? That one was a grade one, used to come and put fuel into the fire. So the one, when it was his birthday, this boy, they called him, then they put me in front, but okay, good, like sing for him, baby birthday. That was the worst experience in my life. But from there, then I started to be reserved. I became closed. I became an introvert. Now, because I didn't have friends. The other kids are like, hey, they don't want to associate with me because this one always gets into trouble. So tonight we stay away. So it so happens, in 2004, I remember there was a project joined by the South African and the Japanese government, if I remember clearly. They came and they opened a library, a school. So that year, I was like, you know what? That's my place. I started going to the library at school, sitting, reading the books. And I could tell you where each book that you're looking for, I could tell you where it is, because I used to go there, sit. So this teacher who used to see me coming in, sitting, reading, she was like, what's up with this kid? So she used to ask me, don't you have friends? I said, no, I have friends, but I'm not connecting now because they do things differently and I want to do things differently. So I can say from that year, grade 4, that's when I started hitting the books and I started seeing myself as a person who was studious. I used to now learn through TV, about UTV, that time they used to have learning channels. I remember when we used to have that, I can't remember, was it under one of these companies used to have this tutoring programs in the mornings. I'm a weekend, man. There was a maths one, there was a science also. There was that old white male who used to do it. He passed away a couple of years back.
Mark something.
Yeah, Mark something. I can't remember clearly. Anyhow. So now it happens in primary, I pushed. Now remember, this is Kokasi, right? We're from a very poor background, family, etc. So go to grade 7, I'm like, can say the top student in the class, right? And funny enough, I always say to myself, it's crazy because I'm not Tswana in terms of my tribe. I'm not Tswana. But I perfected the language so much so that in 3 years consecutively, I was always number 1 in the class, Tswana, is a subject.
Crazy.
Because I used to push. I used to love languages, love learning languages, and I used to push science, maths. Maths became a bit of a challenge, but I could manage in English. Then came to grade 7, we got there was a scholarship that our school was connected with one school, Pretoria Boys High School, and myself and 2 other guys got the scholarship. So actually it was 2 of us. Then the other one, he got through a lady who wanted to adopt him. I can't remember clearly what was the situation. So Manje, it was a big change from see, move your life now. What's in it's gonna go down, So the first few years, I remember I used to take about 2 taxis to get to school. Right? And the one time the taxis had a strike, I had to wake up about 3. Give me the train. So there was a shift. Grade 8 was another year. It felt like grade 1 back all over again. Because you have to learn a new lifestyle. You're speaking English but with an accent. This guy's like, hey boy, what's our guys, I'm coming with that attitude of guys. I would say we don't step on each other's toes. There were these other cats, they were from Mamelodi. So we are East and West, we used to always have that conflict. When they hear what this guy was pale, hey, there's a problem. And I'm not just from Pale, I'm from the Benekan, like the deep ends. It's like your Komora Yago Pale. So it was like hatred between us. I was sure these guys were just hating. But so besides learning was fun, but now the environment was different. I can say I went through an identity crisis, because now I started assimilating with different people. I started trying to understand who am I. That's when my journey of music came in. I went into hip hop and there's a whole culture change.
You were listening to that time?
Yeah, so listening, I was actually into hip hop also,
Yeah.
you know.
The artists, what were the artists' name?
I could say the early, this was like 2007 going up. So this was like when Drake was still coming in, but I wasn't a fan of Drake, right?
Yeah.
But my main, I could say, used to be more Ludacris. Lupe Fiasco actually was one of my favorites.
Yes.
Talib Kweli, your Mos Def or
Oh,
Yasin
okay.
Bey, right? So I was more into like that conscious type of rap. I used to listen to Mortal Technique,
Mortal Technique,
you know,
yeah.
underground rap.
Typical, just like 2000,
I'm telling you,
2007,
2007 going up. Yeah, you know, there was a Kajafini Pass, you know, those guys.
Yeah.
Then there was that crew working, Slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
So
Eminem.
Yeah, so one guy got me connected with Slaughterhouse now. You have your at that time it had faded, but not as much. It was still like a thing. Man, I always forget their name.
One is it DNA?
Well, no, where this guy comes from, what's his name? Name just
Is
escaped
black?
my mind.
Black? Is it black?
Yeah, black American guys. It was like
Cannabis.
not the Yin twins. What are these guys, man? They even had a whole series about them, talking about how they started. You know, the name is there, man.
It's Metamuk.
No, they used to have that, you know, the yin and yang sign.
Yeah.
They used to use it as part of the.
Oh, I don't know those ones. Maybe
the famous one is Razor. He became a Muslim. So he was like a mixed. There was this type of Islam he was practicing. But then later on, he found Islam. From there, you have the famous guy, like his name is there, but it doesn't want to come out. Anyhow. So that whole change now put me in a different position now. Then that's how I got into basketball also. Because, you know, basketball, hip hop were like connected.
Yeah, they were.
So I remember actually, I'm taking out my secrets in my past now. So hip hop also, I went into the dancing side of it. Right. And we were actually quite.
Oh, but I guess you were cramping. Eh?
Yeah.
I knew it.
Pop and lock, cramping. It was a thing, man. I mean, it was a theme. So there were two main crews I remember in Atteridgeville those days, and I was in one of them. And it was like a vibe. But the one thing I think I mentioned this on one of the podcasts with Uzuide, right? In terms of when you go through an identity crisis, you start asking yourself questions about why you do, like, where are you? Who are you? What are you doing? So for me now, my breakthrough came in grade 11, end of grade 10 actually. When I started asking the question of existence. The one time I actually joined the Christian movement because I was like, hey man, I don't understand Islam because I'm born into Islam, but I'm not understanding it. Yeah, but there's just too many red tape and whatnot. I'm not clear with it. A person would ask me about Islam, I wouldn't know. I remember one time, this was back in grade 3 in life skills. We were doing a topic about religions. Then the teacher was like, hey, Muswena and your friend, you're Muslims. Show us how you guys pray. Me and my friend, we stood in front. We're looking at each other. Onje, what is next? What do we do? You know? So obviously that's growing up in a family which was not practicing. Yeah, but later on, then you start going through the thing of it's okay, this happened in my life. I don't want my kids to have the same situation. So grade 10, I started reading books. I write what I like, Stephen Biko. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, no, this is me. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm going through. I took Malcolm X's life. One, it was Stephen because I read what like helped me in being conscious about myself being black. Because I became like a coconut, speaking with the accent and cheating with the white guys because you don't want to assimilate with the black guys. Because I used to feel like, hey, they have this savagery in them, especially Mawapumeka. I'm also from Gas at that time. So I'm like, I want to be different. But I write what I like helped me tap into that. Like, and I think I did read something about, on the line, also on how he started PAC. You can say Pan-Africanism also can help at a certain extent, but I wasn't a fan of Pan-Africanism because one of the things that Pan-Africanism does is that it now crashes the fact that there are different races out there. It's like you're trying to superioritize blackness. or Africanism, and abanye they're just below you. But that's not what we are taught in
It's
Islam.
like having white supremacy.
So now it's becoming like black supremacy. So now when I read what I like, that's when I got in touch with my blackness and my Africanism. Which, okay, no, I'm a black man and I need to show it. I need to be me. I mustn't feel ashamed of speaking my language or practicing my culture. Then Malcolm X's book, it helped me in terms of understanding the role of life, especially myself as a Muslim, right? I mean, we know his whole life, what happened to him.
Yeah.
Imagine, he had an option of going to school and becoming a lawyer. Because he couldn't get into school to become a lawyer, he became a criminal. Right, because of the system.
Yeah.
But then later on, he found out that no, man, the system is there, but still you can make other choices in life whereby you don't have to be a criminal. Then that's how he came out of Nation of Islam. He became a person who started giving his own dawah in a different way. So that also put an imprint in my life. Because, okay, all this started with what? Loving to read, education, just learning. So when it came after matric, you start having different types of connections with people. Then you go into the point of saying, you know what, I want to shape minds. That was my main aspect when I was growing up, especially from a Kasi point of view. What I want to make an impact at Kasi, whereby people are going to look at life not only as a wall, so like you see it as something whereby you can scale it. You can even paint this wall into different colors, or maybe put art or something perspective-wise, which can help you to grow. Because today, like I was talking to you just before we started, a lot of guys, they lack vision. They lack that mindset of saying that something is possible. Because if you talk to them, also, it's like, even if we try, nothing's going to change. Now, already by having that mindset, it's okay, this guy's defeated. That's a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
So the moment you come up and say, look, man, I look at my life, and I always tell my friends and people around, I don't regret anything in life, because I always feel that everything has a reason why it happened. It's like a puzzle. Everything fits perfectly well. That's why I'm here today, because of those things that happened. If they didn't happen, where would I be today? So it's a puzzle. And now when you look back, you ask yourself a question, okay, sharp. Now, since I've went through the whole system, I managed to come out when I could, right? Madrasa actually helped me to come out of Kasi, to be honest. Abanye, they have a different approach or mindset when it comes to madrasa. Maybe according to how they were treated. We also went through racism in madrasa, but the fact that you had a direction and perspective of where you want to be, that's what helped me with get to from point A to point B. Now, also in madrasa, it was a point where you have to be a person who's studious. You can't just go there. We used to call those guys our barakat guys, They just come in for the barakat and they go home and that's it. So you can't be that. You need to be a person who would say you have to put your expertise also have to come in. You need to be a person who molds himself according to the education. You need to be a person whereby whatever knowledge is being taught, you take it and you can assimilate it to your community. That's one of the things that you hear in madrasa, is that you're not given knowledge, you're given the keys. After you leave madrasa, then you can put those tools into place. We have a lot of topics at Kasi which need ulama, especially for indigenous ulama, to discuss. Into like amalobolo and into zamatlos and all these things. These are topics which were not there before. But because now you have indigenous ulama who are from that community now, they can discuss these things. So education has a big window or part to play in our lives, but it always depends on the mindset. Because if I was to be a lazy person, I wouldn't have been in this position. Right.
Now, coming to your education, where did you study after your matric?
So matric, I then took a gap year. In the gap year, I was doing a course, a basketball course, coaching course, actually.
Basketball coaching course.
So I was a basketball coaching
you were
course.
Serious, Mason.
I was serious with basketball. So this was like, the coaches were mainly from UP. And most of them actually were from my school. When they went to further their studies at UP, then they came back, we were doing clinics and stuff, right? So I did a coaching course, a reffing course also. Then I was also coaching actively that year, 2012. Then after that, that's when I got into madrasa. in Lodium.
Madrasa, what's a madrasa?
Madrasa, going to study like, your Islamic studies, but it's a tertiary Islamic studies as per se.
Yeah.
But now madrasa, one of the issues is that you don't just go there with the mindset of, say, I'm going to study madrasa, I'm going to be an imam or an alim, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get a job as an imam or something. My mindset was that I'm going to go there. And remember, I came through that whole the identity crisis, and I was relearning Islam. Yeah. So that was, for my intention was to relearn Islam and relearn who I am, and went back to the Quran, learning the Quran and having to, alhamdulillah, progress well. Then after that year, then I said, you know what, I want to do this long term. Actually, that 2013 was just a 1-year course. It was called a imamate course. We called it imamate course, right? But then I felt that, no, man, I can't do justice to Islam just by learning 1 year. I need to learn more. Then I came enrolled to the Jamia here in Fortsburg, where they do a 6-year course.
6 years.
Yeah, being an alim. So it's like being a pastor, man.
6 years.
It's like a seminar. In Christianity, they call it a seminar. Right?
Yeah. And do they classify it as a bachelor's in a 6 years?
So because our Islamic studies, unfortunately, they are not they're not accredited according to the SAQA, the South African Qualifications Authority. They haven't accredited it. So if you were to look at a normal setup of a university, if you were to study your 4 years of BA, right, in anything, so your BA, that's your level 6 when it comes to your what you call it?
NQF.
Your NQF. Because level 4, that's your matric. Then you can do like a higher certificate.
NQ5.
Right. Then 6. Then actually BA is like a 7. So
it's a 7.
If you have 7, sorry. Then you can do 8, it will be like your honors, 9 your masters, then 10 will be your PhD, right? So if you look at the years that we study at madrasa, 6 years, some places it's 7, right? It depends.
7
so that will be supposed to be equivalent to an NQF 8 or 9. But now, because it's not accredited, now it's like you just did an informal course.
Yeah.
However, the same time when I was studying my in madrasa, I did my B.ed through UNISA. So UNISA has distant learning, right? Where you can...
So you were tackling both?
Yeah, I was tackling both at the same time.
Yeah, I know. I want to.
So I had to, but because one was, like I said, my intention, madrasa, was not to make a living out of that. My intention was to equip myself, go back and teach others, or spread deen, inshallah.
And that's why you also did that.
So my B.ed was because my passion of teaching. I love teaching. So I was like, no, man, I want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
But even people were like, no, you're men. Teachers don't get paid as much. I know, but the main aim, remember, if you look at the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he says that he was sent as a teacher, right? Now, if you look at the point of being a teacher, it's not just about the worldly benefits, but the main thing is the benefit of having to teach someone and inspire others. I mean, today, 1400 years later, we are still inspired by this great man, peace be upon him, because of him being a teacher. Now, those are qualities that you cannot take away from anyone. Like, if I have them, no one can take them from me.
Also, qualities you cannot teach.
Qualities, you have to learn it. In fact, so like, there are things that you're born with, but as you grow up, you actually enhance them. I have a colleague, imagine, I have a colleague who's been teaching as long as I've been alive, for over 34 years. But when we're together, the difference will be because of different aspects and scales, but like the connection is different, and the connection is beneficial because I benefit from him, from his experience. And he sits down, sometimes he asks me questions about what's happening around the world. I love reading and going into like international and local politics and just keeping myself not engaged, but apt with what's happening, not ignorant. I hate the statement, ignorance is bliss.
Look at me, bro.
We have to know what's happening. So when I was studying also 2 different degrees, you can say 2 different institutions, 2 different sides of it, because one is what we call secular, and the other one is diniya or Islamiyat, which is more religion. So there's 2 words that people like to mess up. One is religion studies. So religion studies, I teach a subject actually in school. It's called religion studies. It's a focus of with what we call comparative studies of different religions.
Okay.
We just look at each religion, unbiased. What is it about? What are their tenets? What are their unique features? Where does it come from? Who was the person who came up with it or started with it? What are their concept of beliefs, etc., etc. Yeah, so we did that. Then there's what we call religious. Now, religious studies, it's what you do when you study in a specific religious setup, like going to a madrasa. That's a religious studies. We're focusing only on Islam. Seminaries are focused only on Christianity. Then Judaism, in their own works, they will focus only on Judaism, etc. So that's religious. So I like to explain the difference because many people like to confuse it. Even you'll be surprised at the government departmental level, they always confuse those two words. But anyhow, so for me now, being in a religious tertiary education system and a secular tertiary education system was like a merge, right? Because now I get to understand. There's a subject you do in university when you're doing teaching. It's called pedagogy, like learning how to teach.
Okay.
So when you study only as an alim, you don't learn that. You don't know what say, okay, at a certain level, certain children, I have to teach them in a certain way. There's certain words you have to use. I remember one time I saw a post. One lady was complaining, her son was complaining, the Maulana or the alim was teaching them about Salah. And he told them, if you don't perform Salah, you go to Jahannam. You go to hell. So she's like, but why would you teach a 6-year-old like that? Like, that's scarring. That's traumatizing.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You need to learn how to teach. Because I can come with all the knowledge, Islamic knowledge. But if I don't know how to pass it on to others, I can actually scar people. I have a friend, Monana always, Dokrat. He does a lot of workshops on education, especially when it comes to kids. One of the things he was telling me about a few weeks back was how, this is interesting. So they were in Potchefstroom, University of Potchefstroom, they were doing a dawah program. Table with the pamphlets, just telling people about Islam. Not really propagating, but more of like...
are you interested?
No, not really about interest. Just telling people what Islam is about.
Okay.
Right? Just to present Islam, and that's it. So he said one girl came to him and she was like, I think I'm mixing, there's two stories that he told me. So one was a girl who came to him and she said, can I sing to you? He said, I don't want to hear you sing. So she said, no, I'm going to sing. And she started singing and she was singing there 99 names of Allah.
Okay.
So he looks at her, he's like, you should not dressed in a way you can say a typical Muslim girl is dressed. And he's like, are you Muslim? She's like, no, I'm not Muslim, but I went to madrasa.
Okay,
in afternoons when I was in primary school. Then he's like, okay, so what's happening? Then he was pressing on this issue, saying that there's no continuous program in the townships regarding the Islamic studies. Like after the kids get to, actually today, nowadays, if they get to grade 8 and they continue with madrasa, you're fortunate. Normally, Mawafige grade 7, they actually leave madrasa. Grade 7, 8, you won't really get much coming to madrasa because they feel like, no, we're going to a high school. We don't need to come to madrasa, right? The township is even worse. So now the second incident was that a girl came to him and she said she was looking for Quran. So I was like, how? Quran ganjan? Are you Muslim? She's like, yeah, I'm Muslim, but I'm not really practicing. Yeah, well, then he started asking questions. What's happening? No, okay, we're just Muslim, but we don't really have any sense of Islam in terms of practicality. But again, what was lacking? The knowledge, education, continuous education system in that setup, where these people can be connected to Islam through information. So again, going back to the early point which we were pressing on, the importance of education is that it keeps you connected to your religion, keeps you connected to your identity also. And why I loved studying teaching was because I learned how to then pass this knowledge on to others. I mean, sometimes we can say, look, there's certain methodologies which you can use, which are, effective. But if they don't work according to the people's conditions, they won't help.
Yeah.
You have guys who come into the township. I know one sheikh was from India straight, came to the township, but couldn't speak a word of any local language, not even English. Right? So he was teaching a parrot fashion of Alif, Bata, in the Quran and etc. These kids don't memorize it, But now, because it doesn't have a connection now, but what happens? There's a disconnection. There's no, when they come out of madrasa, you literally see the girls, when they literally come out of the gate of the madrasa, they take off the hijab. They take off the scarf, they take off the abaya. Why? Because they feel like, this is for they. When Mang Puma, then I'm a different person. You see the boys, kurtas, take it, put it in the bag.
Yeah.
Same thing. Why? Because they feel like there's a disconnect. Now, when we start saying things like hire local indigenous ulama in those roles, some people might take it as if we're being like, racist, or we are trying to be black supremacists. But it's not the fact. The fact is that we see that there's a disconnect. I know in one madrasa, kids were learning, not Urdu, even Gujarati, black kids speaking Gujarati,
Zabarpesh.
Yeah, well, in those times. So you be like, hey, man, now Mumtana is speaking Gujarati land, and they can literally sing a Bollywood song because they know, hey, my Ustad Lapa, he speaks this language, I'll learn that language. I mean, these are fascinating things. I mean, there's nothing wrong with learning a different language. But now the setup is very important because this child, when he goes home, they're brainwashing our kids. They're teaching them different language. Now these kids are coming and swearing at us in different languages. So it's very important to have that connection, especially when it comes to education. Then we need to place importance on education because, I mean, I'm of the opinion that if a child does not have the aptitude, I love using this word because many people, they fight about this word. So aptitude is to see at what level a child is comprehensive with whatever subject it is, right? But okay, which like grade 9. In my school, actually, that's what they used to do in my high school. So grade 9, your junior exam was an aptitude test to see which subject you must choose at the end of that year for grade 10 going on. So when you're done with grade 9, you already know which subjects you're going to choose. You know why you're choosing them because your aptitude test told you which are your strengths and which are your weaknesses. And you will work on that.
We never did an aptitude test in grade 9,
Nowadays, there's private companies that do aptitude tests. Actually,
now you do it because you want a job, but in an aptitude test so that they see your
but
placement.
Then how is that going to be beneficial when it's already years later?
So you're saying
it has to be done in school. And it has to be done as early as grade 8, or you can even go to grade 7, because in life orientation already by grade 7, we're discussing career choices. When it gets to grade 8, is grade 9, they now have to choose their subjects. So those 3 years, you're working on them in terms of knowing who they are, their skills, their character. Imagine there's even a character portfolio that you have in terms of a person knowing how they are, how they deal with people. Are they introverted, extroverted, whatever? Because these are things that build you up into a person who goes into a certain step of a career. And if those steps are not built, it becomes a problem. That's why today you have people who've been bouncing back and forth in different careers because they don't know what they want to do. We have people who've been changing courses at varsity for the past 4 years. Every year is a new course. Why? Because they're still confused. So that's what I was saying earlier before we started. We need career days.
Definitely.
Because of this.
Definitely. And when you're doing your B.ed and also your Islamic studies, what was the subjects that go on the Islamic side?
So Islamic side, the first 3 years, you're actually working on your Arabic mostly. So you work mostly on the Arabic, the linguistic side. So you have 2 main subjects, which are very beautiful subjects. So one is called Sarf. Sarf is your morphology, how words change, right, in Arabic. How you can start from a verb going into a noun, going into a certain type of a verb, which is changes into different forms, right, and scales. Then you go into Nahu. Nahu is our grammar or syntax. It's known as syntax in English. How to put your sentence construction properly. When you speak in Arabic, how is it? So now, obviously, I'm talking about classical Arabic, not today's Arabic, which is modern, whereby some of the words are chewed out that you don't even hear. So, just a funny story. We had an opportunity to go and study in Sudan in my 5th year, just before going into my final year. Right, 3 classes in our madrasa for about 4 months. We're in Sudan. So we learned the classical Arabic. Now, they must figure we start speaking to this taxi driver in classical Arabic. Now, this guy looks at us. He's like, hey, man, what are you guys saying? Giving him directions. We don't know. We're going at a certain place, So he's confused. Then he starts speaking in what they call Dariji. Dariji is like a slang. So in Nazi, we're like, hi man, what are you saying? What are you speaking? So a friend, a friend of mine is like, no man, this is not Arabic. And it's like, what you're saying is not Arabic. So we started fighting with the text and Bible. So Fusha is the word that we use for classical Arabic. People will say it's not fluent, original Arabic, as you can call it, but it's classical Arabic. That's what you learn in madrasa. So for the first 3 years, you're more emphasizing on the Arabic. Then you do have some tafsir, which is in English they're called exegesis, of learning about the interpretation of the Quran deep from the second year. Then
So you do tafsir second year while you're still doing your Arabic.
you still do Arabic. Now tafsir is good then because you can do actually in first year you also have another subject called the tarjuma. Tarjuma is the translation of the Quran. So you just have Quran, how to translate the words into English. Then the second year now is going into the deeper understanding of tafsir, how to actually now explain certain words, etc. Then in the third year, it's a more higher level. Now, third year, that's where they start presenting poem or poetry and prose, my favorite, right? Actually, yesterday, just had a conversation with a friend of mine reminding about poetry. And it came into my mind that, we learned Arabic to such a in-depth position. I would say, how poem, what type of a rhythm is used or style is used for a certain poem. For example, I can just give the very famous poetry style. It's called Al-Bahr al-Tawil. Al-Bahr means sea and Tawil means long. So Al-Bahr al-Tawil was a very famous style of writing, right? It's in English, you call it a quartet, right? 2 lines. They have to rhyme. So Al-Bahr al-Tawil, the scale will be mustaf'ilun fa'ilun. That's like a very beautiful thing when you're learning it that time and you're like memorizing this stuff. Imagine now you're memorizing all these things. When I used to tell people that I'm not a first or second level English speaker. I'm a 4th level English speaker because at home we have 3 languages that we speak. And it's English. So anyway, then you learn a different language. You're memorizing all this thing. So now 3rd year, it's your poetry comes in, your prose come in, then you go into now I forgot, in the first year you also do fiqh, but it's like basic fiqh. Second year you now do fiqh is your jurisprudence, your laws in terms of your salah, how to perform your salah properly, like certain things which can break the salah, certain prerequisites for your actions or whatever it is in terms of the laws of Islam. So now when you go higher, you go into in depth on these laws. So 3rd year, now you have your fiqh is there, you have your tafsir, you have your Arabic, your prose, etc. Then you now also go into it's a deeper understanding of Arabic. Is a book called Balagha. Balagha is like a deeper understanding of the language. Now this is not just prose anymore, it's like going into rhetoric. Understanding how the certain words are used. If you use it in a different way, it gives a different complete meaning, etc. So you have all these subjects. 4th year, then you go into the bigger books of, so 2nd year they introduced the hadith. Hadith is your prophetic traditions, but on a smaller scale, your favorite or famous book, Riyadus Salihin. Now in 4th year, now you go into the bigger books. I think in my madrasa now, they started in 3rd year now, Mishkat, also famous book. So in Mishkat, if you look at Riyadus Salihin, a lot of the hadith are taken from Mishkat. But then also there's a chain of those narrations or whatever. So now Mishkat comes in, your 3rd, 4th year. Then you also do in fiqh, you go into the bigger books. Right? Books like your Hidayah. Hidayah is like now the Hanafi. So when you're doing law, you have your articles like what you need to make sure you have them. You can't become a lawyer without those manuscripts. So these are like your manuscripts when it comes into jurisprudence. Then 5th year also, you start focusing more on the hadith side because now you're done with those elementary books. You're no more focusing much on the Arabic because now you know Arabic. All you have to do is apply it. Right. So mainly your 5th year, you are focusing more on the fiqh. You're focusing on hadith and tafsir. There's a book called Tafsir Jalalayn. Amazing writer, Jalaluddin Suyuti. right, is the author of that book. At first it was Jalaluddin Mahalli, then it became Suyuti. Now Suyuti is an amazing person because he writes a lot of books on different topics. And recently I'm reading one of his books, right? And that is an amazing book. So this book is called Ya Allah, Tanwirul Ghabash fi Fadlil Sudan wal Habash. It's regarding the virtues of black people, of Africans.
Oh, nice.
So
nice
interesting because these books are written because they saw a big, the issue of racism in their time. Now, this guy, he was alive in the 11th century, right? So they were having problems in the 11th century about racism. Now, they wanted to crush them and he wrote a book specifically on that. And ended up having married a black woman himself.
Obvious. Once you go black,
you never go back. So it's interesting because the one podcast I like listening to, the Mindscape, they had one Sheikh Habib.
I think I saw it.
Sheikh Habib from the UK, originally from Nigeria. Then it also tied in with another very interesting. By the way, we're not sponsored by.
Don't know.
So there's another scholar, Sheikh Mustafa Briggs, and he wrote a book. I'm also trying to get his book. It's on for those who can sponsor.
You can't get that book. I've been looking for that book for a long time.
Since Amazon came into SA, I've been busy checking.
Even a PDF, I can't.
No, you can't. So you have to get it on Amazon. But the problem is now you have to get it from the US, get it shipped.
Customs.
So his book is Beyond Bilal. He also speaks about this, and he goes back to Sheikh Jalaluddin Suyuti as a reference, and also he goes to and refers back to Ibn al-Jazari also. No, not al-Jazari. Sorry, mixing up the name, but it will come back. I just lost it for 2 seconds. So now, Tafsir Jalalain, one of the most famous tafsir books you have, but that one focuses more on the linguistic side. Now you did your Sabuni's Safatu Tafsir in second year, which is okay, but then you need to go higher. What do you do now in fifth year? Then you also access your very famous Ibn Kathir, right? Or you go to Tabarani. Tabarani is also another tafsir book. Tabari is the tafsir. Then you can access other scholars who wrote tafsir. You can access them because now you have the keys, you have the tools of Arabic. Sixth year is focused mainly on the 6 books of hadith, right? The famous ones, your Sahih Muslim, Bukhari, Nasa'i, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, and Imam Malik's one also, right? So you can, when you focus on it, and there's Imam Muhammad, the Hanafi scholar, also has because he was actually a student of Imam Malik himself, right? It's interesting because he was a student of Imam Malik, and Imam Shafi was a student of Imam Malik, then he became his student. Then it's an interesting connection. So there's a lot in Muwatta, there we go. So he also wrote the Muwatta. Now, when you do all these books, like I said before, people think, you're a scholar now, you're not done. Because there's other books that you now need to go and yourself start reading. So then I started also collecting my own books. There's a beautiful book that I love. It's called the Munyatul Mutamalli. It's a book regarding the Hanafi proofs of Salah. Like, why do we perform Salah the way we perform as Hanafi fiqh? Right? It's a beautiful book. Starts from the beginning, like Allahu Akbar. Why do you say Allahu Akbar? Why do you put your
tell
hands?
Me, when we're in Salah, and we find maybe people, they would say, okay, they'll do the first takbir, Allahu Akbar, and then they will drop their hands like this. And then you find people fighting. Hey, you must have your hands like this. And then one would say, no, but the Prophet was never seen holding his hands like this, so you must never drop your hands. Even if you're in any position, you must hold your hands. So, but you find those ones saying, no. You drop your hands.
So these are topics which, interestingly enough, when you look into history, these are topics which came up time and time again. Mostly what we call irsalul yadain, dropping the hands. You find it in the Maliki fiqh, right? Because at one point in the Maliki fiqh, because remember Imam Malik bases his fiqh, his jurisprudence according to the actions of the people of Medina, because he was born and raised in Medina. Now, whatever was happening in Medina was his fiqh. There are some Sahaba who used to drop their hands. There is a connection to it in terms of proof that they cite. Then there's those who do the tying of the hands. The Malik will put above the navel. Then there's connection to that. Now, with the Hanafi fiqh, also because we base our fiqh all the way up until Abdullah bin Mas'ud in that line, because he had also a very good, close connection to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you find those who base their fiqh according to Mu'adh bin Jabal, who then went to Yemen before the Prophet passed away, just a year before the Prophet passed away. Now, he went with the fiqh that he had learned until that time. So it could happen that at some point there was a change of how the Prophet used to put his hands. It's possible. And there is actually proof that says that. At some points he would put his hands here or here. Now, according to each Sahaba, how they took, then they went into other places and they taught people that way. Whatever happened, however Salah was, but remember, I always tell my students this thing, that we always fight about things which are not the fara'id of Salah. The placing of the hands is not a farad, right? It's actually a sunnah. And in terms of how to place the hands. So why are we fighting about things in Arabic? We call it, so we have what we call the asal. Asal is your basic thing that you cannot compromise. Asal is like performing Salah itself. It's an asal, right? The postures. In terms of standing, ruku, sajda, and the sitting. Those are your asal. Now, the other ones, we call them fara'i. Those are your secondary things that you worry about, which are really not things that we should fight for. I actually have a personal experience. One time I went to a masjid, and a friend of mine was following the Shafi fiqh, right? So he placed his hands here. So one uncle goes, it's staunch Hanafi, after Salah starts shouting at this guy, hey, why are you putting your hands there? You must put your hands here, like below the navel. So we asked the uncle, like, but why are you fighting? Because this is a sunnah, it's not a farad. If you place these hands here, it's okay, it's here, it's fine. Irsal is fine. Because people forget that each scholar that came up in fiqh had their own proof of why they're doing such a thing. Even interesting, Imam Shafi'i has two books of his basis of fiqh, right? You have his book that he wrote before, then after when he moved into Egypt. Right? Because remember, you have to have a synchronizing of the thought and how you're learning. So certain aspects, he changed certain points that he mentioned before in his book before. So it was like your Old and New Testament for him, right?
Oh, yeah.
In that aspect.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right? So those who take the later book would say that's the correct and go on. Then there's others who still carried on practicing from what was in the first book. And it's still okay, because those are things which are not completely breaking Salah. It's like, when you're sitting down in the jalsa, some say you must put your foot up like this, some say no, you can sit on the foot, some say there's different ways of interpreting it. But at the end of the day, the way of sitting is not a farad, but the sitting part is the farad. So that's why we, again, going back to the point of what makes this easy for us is knowledge. Because people will fight because we don't know.
Yeah.
Right? The Arabic proverb says that people are an-nasu adawun lima jahilu. People are enemies of what they are ignorant of. So because I don't know something, I'll fight you.
Yeah.
Because I don't know it.
To convince you that mine is right.
Mine is the right way. But I don't know. I don't have the knowledge of what I'm saying. I don't have the basis. So I'll fight you. But the moment you start knowing, you say, oh, okay, no, so there is a leeway. So I always used to have fights with the guys who call themselves Salafis, right?
Yeah,
it's a funny one. Because I know, why why do you follow a madhab? These things, they are causing more distraction and more division. But if you think of it, following and forcing people to follow only one way causes division. Because if everyone can have leeway, alhamdulillah. Actually, that just shows that it's mercy. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, says that the differences of the scholars is actually mercy on the deen. Because if I were to say, no, this is the only way we do things and that's it, what's going to happen to people who can't do that? What's going to happen to a person who needs concession? So it becomes like, now we're being too strict and we're not allowing room for people to grow and think and understand that there's different ways.
And also, I think it acts as a barrier for people who want to understand Islam and have zero basis. Somebody's a non-Muslim or somebody's been a Christian all impilo yakhe, and he wants to understand this Islam. But once you start talking about the Shafi, there's Maliki, there's there's Tabligh, so many things now. But like you are overwhelmed with this information because it's not practical in a way. Often just something to
hold on to.
Understand and practice immediately.
Yeah. So that's why Masenzama Dawa workshops for a person who then becomes a Muslim. One of the main things I always teach people is that do not bring this mindset of would say, okay, so do you embrace Islam? Now you must be Hanafi. No. It's not a requirement for that person on that point to say, I choose to be this. Because people need to understand why certain things are happening. If you throw a person into the deep end, what's going to happen? Right? So there's actually an interesting podcast I was checking recently, Yaga Penwell. I know it's very controversial. So the one lady he had on his podcast, she was talking about how South Africa might be moving to an Islamic state.
Oh yeah,
and
I
she was
saw
like,
that.
"Hey,
I
we
saw
don't
a
want
clip.
South Africa to be an Islamic state."
Yeah.
So he said something interesting. I don't know if people picked it up. He said, "I was forced into Christianity." He said he was forced into the Christian Christianity state of mind, and not just beliefs, but mind and everything. Because if you easily saying South Africa would be plus minus 50 to 60% Christians, but others obviously do adhere to different ways of life.
Yeah.
But he said something interesting, because for me it was interesting to say that most people would go into that Christianity for the rest of their lives and they wouldn't know why they do certain things. Tina, alhamdulillah, there's room. Every religion has room to learn, but it always comes down to the point of when yourself, what are you actually pushing yourself towards? I didn't just want to be a person who was born into Islam and that's it. I wanted to know why I'm doing certain things, why certain things are happening, right? The biggest questions will come in my mind, then I must be able to feel free to ask. It's when you ask the person, hey, don't, just keep quiet. We don't need, there's no room for your questions now. Now you feel trapped, okay? Then you feel constricted. Then the next thing, what happens? People become apostates. They leave the religion. Then you wonder, why is a person not calling himself agnostic, or they even calling themselves atheist? Because they didn't understand what it was that they were doing. They were just following a routine and that's it. So we want Islam not to just be a routine religion for people. People must understand, even if the person doesn't embrace Islam, but just know what Islam is about. Don't come and misquote Islam on a social media platform where 3 million people will come back and bash you.
But do you think is South Africa can be of benefit of Islam? Looking at Islam has been here maybe for like 300 years.
Most definitely. I mean, if you look at how Islam has been impactful in the South African land, then you would actually realize this possibility that Islam can be one of the biggest religions in the next 30 years or so. We know 370 years or because of different aspects why it didn't grow. But now we actually are being more conscientized as local indigenous South Africans. We're having that mindset to know, man, this is deen, man. One person, we had a Dawa conference a couple of months back, I think it was in July. So one person asked, he said, but why are we not having a tailor-made Islam for the local people to understand Islam in their own way? Not saying no, I must now perform Salah in Setswana or home language. No. But in terms of, why can't I express myself in my own way, but still keep my Islamic identity? Why can't I wear my own pattern? Regalia. Might say 24 September. I mustn't look like a Saudi Arab. I must look like a South African Muslim who's, alhamdulillah, connected to his roots and at the same time having the pride of being a Muslim. Why can't I keep my name, name from my own home, whereby, for example, Ubegi? I mean, like, those are things which are important to us culturally as Africans. So now when a person walks into the door and say they want to become Muslim, then they are met up with these things. No, the moment you say you shahada, they must change your name. Where is that?
I also wanted to understand, like from you as Kolugoti, a lot of young Muslims are facing this challenge of They want to express themselves artistically. You know, they want to write music. They want to dance. They want to be in movies. They want to act. Yeah, well, they want to be influencers. And I see a lot of them. And I see they are really good, some of them. But manje, it's like Islam figure as this barrier to say, no, you can't dance, you can't do music, you can't. What is the role of Islam? What is the opportunities Islam that can present to these artists to express themselves, but at the same time not crossing the boundaries, you know, but still have to express themselves authentically as possible. Ingabi, if I wanna paint, let me paint, but ingabi into good Islam ukuthi ngipaint so uyabona, but still I have to do it. I don't know if
I understand.
I'm painting the question.
Yeah. No, I understand, because there are certain boundaries. Let's be fair, right? There are certain boundaries whereby we cannot compromise.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one thing that we need to keep in mind. That's actually one of the things for me that makes Islam great. We do not curl just because a certain situation is taking place. But there's actually opportunities in certain fields of art. I know a lot of people growing up, also a lot of guys were into rap with myself, hip hop and all these things. But later on in life, alhamdulillah, they actually went deeper into the poetry side of it. The late our brother Malik Mashangu, rahimahullah, he was a very good poet, and he was into rap himself in early ages. His brother also. I was more connected closer to his brother Muhajir because of basketball. And funny enough, his school that he went to, it's not Willow-Ridge, I just forgot his school's name. In my school, were actually rivals when it came to basketball, right? Then you have guys who want to do performance art. There's always a way of putting your talent into place without crossing those boundaries. I think people need to understand that part, that you should always find alternatives which can still help you being in there. Because, I mean, if it's a talent, right, for me to shake it off would be difficult because now I have to learn something new.
Yeah.
But rather enhance it in a way, I would say it can help you do something with it which is positive and at the same time is beneficial to you as a Muslim. Filmmaking, for example, that's one thing used to be shunned upon. Even imagine to a point that even speaking on radio in certain Muslim communities, I won't say the cultural aspect of it, speaking on radio, people used to say, no, that's haram. Now, let alone going on TV, let alone showing up on social media. So these are things whereby there is room for it in Islam. However, there has to be a connection between a person and, you can say, a scholar also to direct and help with understanding the certain ins and outs of it. Fiqh is very flexible. There's one thing people don't understand. We learned in the early days of learning our fiqh was that fiqh actually can turn according to what we call urf in Arabic, the local practices of the people, can actually affect or influence the fiqh of the time, right? But obviously in a way whereby it's not going to cross the boundaries of Islam. That's one thing I need to express on. Right? So now going into things like, for example, I remember when we were still growing in madrasa, they would tell you even going into sports is haram. Right, but then you look at one of the most influential people in Islam was a cricket player, Hashim Amla. Right, who brought even a friend of him became a Muslim. Even many other people became Muslim that you don't know of. Right, you look at my favorite sport, basketball. Right, you have there's three main guys in basketball who became Muslim. And two became Muslim while they were playing basketball and were influential in other people becoming Muslim. So you have very famous Karim Abdul-Jabbar, right? He's one of the very famous Muslim basketball players in NBA. Then you have, Hakeem Olajuwon from Nigeria originally. He was Muslim from birth and etc. But because of the way he used to carry himself out, he influenced other people. Then you have brother Mahmoud Abdul Latif, he actually, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, he actually left the NBA because there was a whole internal fight that he had with himself with the ethics of the NBA. So much so that he started boycotting games because of the certain things that were being done by America. Now, this is during the Vietnam War and all that stuff, when the wars were taking place. So he boycotted and he left the NBA. Imagine a person who was earning millions leaving because his dean is now pushing him to say, no, I can't stand for this. He did that. And he became one of the greatest speakers against oppression. If it may be racism against black people or what's happening in Palestine, he became a very vocal person. But again, this doesn't stop you with norm, and just because I'm a Muslim, I can't do this. But you need to find out, is there a way that I can do it where I can still remain in that circle of it being halal, permissible for me? Now, that's all I'm going to advise. I'm not going to give the blanket ruling what halal, haram.
I know.
Because that one, we can be misquoted.
It's tricky.
So you can be misquoted. So you just need to say.
And speaking to the fiqh, you're saying the fiqh can also be used in an understanding of the context of the people at the time.
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking of a fiqh filmmaker, a person who would say, no, but you cannot free mix in this fashion. Maybe you want to show a love scene. You can do it in this way. You don't have to be in contact with each other. You can put a green screen to suggest as if there is something happening. You don't have to go to the corner face to face. Yeah, but I think those things can be. Hey, filmmaker, I just discovered a new role.
So one of the craziest things is people don't understand one of the countries with the largest population of Muslims, Malaysia, has actually the biggest film industry in the world, one of the biggest film industry in the world, right? And when you look at the film industry, how they have shaped it, they actually always have connection with the ulama.
Yeah.
Also, I have to always go and consult. Okay, we are thinking of doing this. Can we put it in or not? Then the ulama, when they sit and have discussion, okay, no, this one, we can adjust it so that it doesn't get out of the way. Obviously, then you do have the renegades, so we'll be like, "Aye, man, we just want to make the money."
Yeah, you see, that's been my struggle throughout to say, I have a lot of scripts that I've written, but there are those ones where I'm crossing the boundary, and I know myself I'm crossing. But manje, the execution becomes a challenge. How am I going to do this? Number one, because there is, I can't say there's less talent in the filmmaking that is for Muslims, because it's a market, and it's still going to grow. As Islam grows in Mzansi, there's also going to be a demand for Muslim filmmakers. So, anyway, I'm saying Ozani sends a movie, but what I'm saying is we need those ulamas who give us the direction to say, I know we're crossing. You don't need to show this. You can suggest it in this fashion. Of course, that's where the filmmaking comes into sight, how we shoot things. But I'm seeing a gap. Now, also in the arts, we are not allowed to draw objects. That one has been a pain point for artists. I don't know for how long.
Yeah, no, that one has been very controversial. I know a couple of Muslim artists, and alhamdulillah, they try to stick to platform drawings on only like buildings and maybe scenery, etc., etc. I mean, also in art, remember, you don't only have one type of art. You have your abstract, you have your different other types of art a person can go into also, and it might be actually more effective if they try and change their way. But when, like I said before, there's certain things which are completely red tape, and that we can't compromise, and we need to stick to it. Obviously, today people will start fighting about now filmmaking, about pictures, about videos and stuff. I mean, these are things that we had a lot of discussions about, right? And also there's actually fatwa, which have been given by the fatwas, now your rulings by big muftis regarding for educational purposes, you can do that. For example, you have, if you have, I know of a certain author in America, I just forgot her name. She now publishes books for school kids, right? But she doesn't draw the eyes and stuff. But still, the caricature, if you look at it, it's still okay. You can be like, okay, no, it's fine. And it's respectfully so. She draws things accordingly. And she makes sure she doesn't step the boundary, but at the same time, it's very educational to the kids. Like, there's always a way, like I said, there's always a way which a person can actually find themselves getting into something and making it very effective, in a positive way, influential in a positive way. I think that's one thing people forget. There's another point actually that came in my mind while you were speaking, just left the room. But at the end of the day, I think we need to look, So I wanted to give you an example, right? When you're talking about filmmaking, about making dramas, etc. I know personally people who embraced Islam after watching The Message. The Message was your
Yes, I've
early
seen that.
2000,
Yeah.
you can call it the movie
Yeah.
about the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I know a lot of people who embrace Islam. I know white people who embrace
Yeah.
Islam because of that, right? There's another movie was about Salahuddin.
Salahuddin.
it's
I am not those men. I'm Salahuddin. Famously.
Right?
Yes.
So I mean, that was a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
But because of that, a lot of people got very curious about Islam, and some of them actually embraced.
It's called Dracula.
Not Dracula.
It was about Dracula.
There's Dracula. There's another one of his conquest of Jerusalem. I forgot the name of that one. The name is there, man, but it emphasized on three characters: himself, Salahuddin, King Baldwin, the leper, right? And I forgot the third person's name. And I was recently listening to the Crusade.
Vlad.
No. This is different. Now, Vlad, remember, Vlad is into the Ottoman Empire later on. So Vlad was now against the Ottomans later on. But that also is another very interesting take of seeing how they depicted Muslims that time also.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask people historically about Vladimir the Impaler, right, was what Dracula, but they must understand what there was a person in reality who was nicknamed Dracula, but he wasn't a vampire. That's the thing. But he used to impale people. They killed him in a very gruesome way. But then the Ottomans stood their grounds and eventually killed him. But there's a lot of history perspectives into things. Recently, I was just talking to a colleague of mine. I was telling him that I came across this series called Vikings Valhalla. The one thing I liked about this one is because it has historical points about what happened. Like, I love history. So I read about the history. Then when watching those clips, then you'd be like, no, this actually did happen.
Yeah.
You know, there was a King Canute who was the first ever Viking English king. Right? And this is what happened. There was a person by the name of Olaf, they call him now Saint Olaf, who became a Christian, who Christianized the Vikings. You know? So all these things you learn from it. Then people don't know also the Vikings embraced Islam. In Spain. They went to pillage and they went to Ramsek, Spain, and in turn they embraced Islam.
There's actually a scene there in the first one.
The other Vikings. I think I saw the clip also.
When Floki went into the temple, they saw
people surprised people.
Like,
what are they
where are their gods? Where are their gods?
So you see now, when you have things that connect to history, it makes much sense for us. I mean, can't we also have not a film in a big word of a movie, but like something that can show you about how the early Muslims came into South Africa from the Malaysian islands, you know, how they settled into Cape Town, how they interacted or were being treated by the Dutch, etc. I mean, those are things that people can learn from. Well, at the end of the day, I feel like we like to restrict ourselves too much. And even when there's things whereby there is concession, we restrict too much, we're like, you know what, rather not. But when you look at the benefit of something, there's a greater benefit, especially for people. When I started going into radio, right, one of the questions I used to ask myself was, why am I doing this? You know, is it because I love to speak, or is it I want to have a certain message? Because when the CEO of Salam Media asked me, what's going to be the name of your show? I said, no, Call to Guidance. He said, why Call to Guidance? I'm like, no, I feel like when we have everyone, all the guests that we're going to have, are going to be people who speak about Islam and how Islam can spread without us forcing it on people. People who are doing community work, people who are doing dawah itself, people who are doing projects in schools. I was just speaking to another brother right now. They have an organization. They want to do like a sanitary towel drive for the girls in their township because they don't have those commodities. They people who are going to be able to teach skills to the youngsters in the township or even anywhere else to empower the community. But still, Islam being one of the things that pushes them to do that because of the hadith that says that the best amongst you are those who are beneficial to others. So when you have that in your mind over and over again, it teaches you that we're not just doing things for ourselves. We're not self-centered people. We're people who are selfless because we believe that, I believe with my heart and soul and everything that, alhamdulillah, this is salvation for mankind and humankind. So shouldn't I wish the same thing for someone else? That's the question that always lies in the discussion when we talk about dawah.
Any last words before Sivan, because I'm looking at...
My last words is always about going back to the basics, let's make reading fashionable and enjoyable and fun. This was my message.
Hey, it's hard to read.
This was my year-end message to my students, was that let's make reading fun and enjoyable again, fashionable. People don't want to read.
It's hard to read.
Students cannot even read a master test.
Advice maybe for me. Advice for me, because I know it's going to be advice for others. I'm a slow reader.
Yeah.
I'm very slow.
So,
like when I read, when I'm able when it's ta-da-da-da, ta-da-da-da, ta-da-da, and then I go back.
Actually,
and then I just chill but the problem now, I'm not going to finish that book.
For me, that's the most effective way of reading. Because what you do, you're taking down notes and you are reverting back to the ideas. Okay, sharp. If you have read 3 different ideas there, then you want to keep them in mind. How is this idea going to be applied? Even take notes. So one of us used to tell us, when you're reading, take a book, make notes. Recently, going back, I'm reading this book for the 3rd time, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
I have a copy somewhere. Yeah.
That book, people do not understand how powerful that book is. I mean, you can say, it's not from Muslim, whatever, but this guy knew people's minds because he was into psychology, You read other books like Dale Carnegie, how to make friends, for example, right? I read that book not because I wanted to make friends, but how to be influential to people in a positive way. Took down notes. Those same notes are going to help me when I go on the platform and give Juma a talk, because I'm going to be able to say, remember, people don't understand why we read. Some read for leisure, some read to pass time, but some read to actually learn. I want to read to learn. Right? I used to read before. So I told my wife, one of my, not resolutions, one of my goals this holiday was to actually be able to finish at least 3 books. But those 3 books have to be things whereby at the end of the holiday, she must come back and ask me, what did you read? I must be able to give her a summary. Because I want to sit down with the notebook, taking notes.
Read for understanding. Yeah.
Understanding. So reading slow doesn't necessarily mean you don't know how to read. It means that you're taking in. And I prefer that way of reading than just, then you're done.
They make us feel like it's if you fall slow. And I know majority of people read like that, but they won't say, I'm slow, man phone. Or when slow, we slow learner.
And it becomes a blemish.
Yeah, so I know myself. I'm a slow reader, but I know once I've read something, something is I remember.
So I had one mentor of mine. He used to read like that. He used to, like, if you take his book, you'd see doggy ears there, folded, and there's notes inside.
Yeah,
that book would have 500 pages, but when you pick it up, it feels like 1,000 pages because there's notes inside. Yeah. So he taught me that when you read, don't read to finish. Yeah. Take your time. If it takes you 3 months, it's fine.
Yeah,
as long as you know when you're done, you can give a summary of that book and give a lesson. What did you learn? Today, people will tell you they've read 1,000. I read 1,000 books when I was in my high school.
True.
Right? I read a whole over 1,600 page book, Order of the Phoenix, Harry Potter. That was my favorite series.
You've read the whole thing?
I read the whole thing because I used to love reading. But the point is now that when I look back, I'll be like, no, man, but I wasn't reading to understand. I was just reading for fun. Because it was culture. People wanted to read. People were reading Harry Potter. It was fun.
Yeah.
I was reading. But now when I sit with a book, I'm telling you, at one point I had a book which had only 100 pages. I didn't finish it in a year. I couldn't finish it in a year because I always go back, recap, take down notes.
And what topics do you think are good for me, Mhlambe? As a creative, So I like novels, but I don't want long ones where there's stuck summer paper. Chances I'm not gonna finish. Simple novels I can pick up and see. Just scroll through. And
I mean, it depends on your genre that you like to read. That's all I like to say. If you have a genre, do that. But if you want something whereby, for example, you want to apt your skills, be more effective, read books about people who actually went through certain situations in life and they turn the situation into something gold. Dale Carnegie is one of them.
Yeah.
You read about this. His name always escapes my mind when I need to say it. There's a series on the men who shaped America, right? I just forgot his name. His name is right here, man. He was a oil tycoon until today. His wealth is still standing in his family. Rothschilds. Here we go.
Yeah.
The Rothschilds. Then you look at the big families, right? You look at the stories of how they became who they became. It will really shape your mind. You read, if possible, you want to go deeper into it, like your Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali. And Nelson Mandela read his book, Long Walk to Freedom also. Like you learn things from there. But that's to help you about putting yourself in a certain position. Then in terms of creativity, then obviously you have to go into reading like more J.R.R. Tolkien. But the small ones. You can look at,
I've seen what's the Samarion? That thing you can't
go
read.
to Roald Dahl. It's easy books. Roald Dahl wrote nice books for kids, or even Dr. Seuss.
I think kids books are good for
kids
me.
Kids books are nice for creativity, man. So people don't understand. My favorite author when it comes into fiction was a man by the name of Malcolm Rose, and his genre was thriller and horror. So people were like, "Hey man, why horror? Like horror, it makes you have that sense of possibilities because it pushes your mind to the brink." Stephen King also.
Stephen King. Stephen King in the Tall Grass. They've actually made a movie about it.
Stephen King, when it comes to imagination, mind-boggling. So those are things where you sit down and you're like, how did this person think? Lord of the Rings,
you know what they say. Stephen King, Tolkien.
Yeah.
They were inspired by Illuminati, bro. Can't write that. Who writes that? Who writes that thing?
But I mean, that just shows you the mind. Young taller, like you have the capability of you can reach the ceiling, like we say, Kopitori, the sky's the limit. So those are things, books which I feel like inspired me to read more because the creativity of these men was amazing.
Crazy stuff.
Going to things where you can't even fathom how can a person think of this. Imagine a person created a whole language.
Tolkien, that's what I'm telling you. Tolkien now, bro. You can't just read Tolkien.
Some people say he was high on something.
He was high. Tolkien was high. How can you create such a world? There's elves, there's dwarfs, there's dragons, there's
civilizations.
A whole civilization speaking a different language, having a culture.
And funny enough, after Lord of the Rings, there has been a consistent trend in making sure the elf culture stays. If you look at other books that came afterwards, they always had that elf culture. The dwarf culture is there. They have that language. It's become so consistent.
The hobbits, they have their own culture.
It becomes consistent. Harry Potter also, there's a consistency in a culture of wizardry, etc. It becomes consistent. Now, if you read any other book that speaks about wizards, they're always connected back to all those main things that you're speaking about,
It becomes a point of reference.
It becomes a point of reference and becomes consistent, like it builds up. So that's to show what these people were influential. It's fiction, yes. That's just for leisure and fun. But the degree of influence that is amazing. One of the greatest scholars that we have today, Maulana Suleiman Mullah, he is a great reader. And he always says that the only thing that made him reach, besides the du'as of his parents and his asatidha, one of the big things that made him such a big orator is his love for reading. And he never used to choose which genre. Just read. Because you want to improve also vocabulary. That's another thing people don't understand. If you want to improve vocabulary.
Is he from Mzansi or?
Yeah, South African, from Lens.
He must come. Hey, Lens. Must come. Mulana, please, man. Come to the show.
Son also. His son's in my madrasa. He's actually a teacher now in my alma mater madrasa, alhamdulillah. But these are people that we learn from, and alhamdulillah, you can see they are trying their best to bring about an influence of positivity, of how Islam can actually move from I always say that Islam in South Africa, it's like a monopoly. There's a certain group of people who want to monopolize it. So now when they see other guys breaking the shackles, it becomes like a fight. It's not a fight, honestly. For us to have a group called the Fraternity of Indigenous Ulama, right? It's not that we are fighting any other alim or ulama board out there which is of a different color or race. No, but it's because we have that concern. They are going through so much in life and they don't understand the basics in Islam. They feel like Islam is all, if you want to be saved in terms of Islamic code. But when it comes to other issues, spiritual issues, then we need to not consult so those are the topics we are actually dealing with. We had a recent issue regarding amalobol. Right? Families are fighting and breaking because of that concept. Akhi is a Muslim, doesn't want to pay lobol because that's haram. Certain sheikh told him it's haram because that sheikh, where he's from, they don't have lobol. Sheikh, you are staying in South Africa. Your culture has that. Islamically, it's allowed because there's concepts of it not being a concept of it's farad. You have to do it. But just do it to please the family and carry on. And you're not stepping any bounds. That's another thing.
And it's really it's sad, ngoba it now the families, the connection doesn't become solid because of now wenze ngendlela yakho. You didn't consult us. You are doing your own thing. And now I've seen it.
Actually, I would love this to be our next topic. Because we had an incident where Umjida Fro passed away. Before he paid Amalobo. Now, at the Fro's family, they were like, no, when I saw and you haven't paid Amalobo, so long done it to some tat, we're gonna bury her the way we want. So you don't get anyway. Now imagine in that situation, and that family obviously 100%, 99% of them are not Muslim. Now he could have avoided that.
Definitely,
easily. So that's why these things need to be rampant discussions, and I believe, inshallah, for the next episode.
Last question. I know it's gonna go. I think I push on 2 minutes. And last question: if you were to put your best scholars, Speto Einstein last, Speto Imam Bukhari. Malik.
Look, why I would side with our traditional Muslim scholars is because these were men that were put in challenge of reality. Abu Einstein, let's look at it carefully. Isaac Newton came up with a theory. These are theories. Darwin came up with a theory. Things whereby there was a possibility it could be real or wrong. When you look at our traditional Muslim scholars, they were looking at things which were happening. There was a reason for them to say, no, man, this is how it's supposed to be. It's so because the Quran gave us this, the Hadith gave us this. They put it into perspective and reality. One of my favorite scholars, Imam Ghazali. I love his history because of the turning that he did, right? Goes into a certain field, philosophy, the field of the unknowns. Everything is a question mark. Then what he says, he had the answers. Then he had a breakdown, mental breakdown. People obviously back then they didn't know it's a psychological issue. They just said, So he went away, came back, reinvented himself, said, you know what? I'm writing a book against philosophy. A whole refutation against philosophy. Then he became now the center of reference for other upcoming Muslim scholars because of his stance against philosophy. He moved against the wave. He moved against the tide. Abantu, they were going there. If you look at Ibn Sina, they moved with the flow. We love ilm, we love knowledge. This is the greatest time of Islam. This is the golden age in Baghdad. All the scholars are coming from all over the world. People don't understand when Baghdad became the biggest city with Baytul Hikmah. There were scholars who were Christian, Muslim, Jews, and atheists also who were there in Baghdad. So they were writing all their treatises according to their studies and their theories. So it wasn't a religious thing. But now when you have Imam Ghazali and them coming in their time, it was about setting the record straight. But no, there are those arts, there are those fields. But as Muslims, this is how we're supposed to do. This is how we're supposed to push. So they stood their grounds when everyone was just going with the flow. You read about Ibn Arabi and them, you would see there was a time of doubt. literally regarding their spirituality. They doubted their spirituality because of philosophy. But then they had a wake-up call. Then it brought them back. That's why these people, you cannot beat them. Like I said earlier, I used to have debates with the Salafi guys. One of the guys, I told him that you can never ever say a bad word against Imam Abu Hanifa, because this man, that's why we call him Imam al-A'dam. He's the great Imam. He came at the time whereby his own Amir, right? His own Amir, Harun al-Rashid, got him persecuted because he couldn't fold.
Is he the one who's saying, refuting the guys saying Quran is created?
No, so that's Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal.
Oh,
so Imam Abu Hanifa, in his time, he had a group of people known as the Mu'tazila. So these guys were rationals. They wanted everything must be rational, must be logic. So everything according to him was logic. So Harun al-Rashid was also part of that movement. He was very logical. So Imam Abu Hanifa, when he was asked certain questions, he stood his ground like, no, it's like this. There's no such thing like that. This is how it is. Quran says this, Hadith says this, the Sunnah is like this. And because of that, he was prisoned. Then in his prison, most of the historical writings say that he was poisoned in his prison because of his stance against Imam Ahmad. Same thing, because of his stance against the notion of Quran is created. He stood his ground when everyone else was saying, no, Quran is created. He stood his ground. He was also killed. So these are men that you cannot shake. Imam Abu Hanifa was offered to be the state judge, not even just a small judge. The state judge under the Amir was him to be the state judge. He said no. Because if I become state judge, because you are paying me, my opinions are going to be changed because of your influence.
And definitely the state doesn't want abantu abafana nabo.
They take you out.
You're out. Considering as podcast, I know sizoyiphusha again next comings. Inshallah, maybe next month. Ngifuna singene kuba boy Imam bin Haba. Boss.